Macro photography. Have you ever thought about giving it a go, but the thought of doing macro photography might seem daunting to you? Well, in actual fact, in this video, I'm going to show you how you can do macro photography with minimal type of gear or the camera you already have, plus a few accessories to make your macro photography life a hell of a lot easier. Hello, my name's Glenn Selma and you're watching Sniper Photography. And today I'm going to teach you and show you my workflow for macro photography, what gear I use and what gear you don't need if you're really just starting out with macro photography. So having said that, let's go.
Just like to offer a big shout out to Touchdown Digital, the sponsor of this week's video.
Okay, I found this quite interesting cobweb around here, and it's on these like fronds or fronds or whatever you call these things on these trees. And this is intricate detail by nature. I mean, it's just amazing how spiders build these webs. It's incredible how hard they work. So it goes from the bottom of that sprong all the way up to the top with the circle in the middle of the main catching part of the web. Now I'm going to photograph this. I might have to focus stack this, I'm not quite sure, but I'm going to go right up close to it because I'm at 1:1 magnification and I'll have flash power. My flash power will be, I'm going to reduce my flash power because I don't want to overexpose this too much. So I'm going to photograph this, and then once I do that, I'll put that image up on the screen. I have taken a couple of others which I will put up as well, but this is, if you can see that on the camera there, you got the web and the green fronds. It's quite an amazing little natural scene, and this is one thing I like about macro photography. What you see is what you don't realise is there, and it's absolutely incredible nature. And yeah, so I'm going to take a photo of that and then I'll put it up on the screen. Okay, so here's another one. Macro photography just isn't about bugs and insects and butterflies and snails. It's also about plants and flowers. And we're in the middle of winter here in Australia, and there aren't too many bugs about. But there's a few spider webs which I've just photographed and just shown you. And then there's some really nice winter flowers. And I found this, and we've had a fairly heavy dew overnight. But as you can see, we've got these flowers here, and I don't know what you call them, I have no idea, but they're very, very nice. But what's attracted me the most here is that the petals on this flower here are all wet. So I'm just going to photograph this stem here, and I'll get very, very close, keeping in mind this is at 1:1 magnification. So I'll take this shot and we'll just see how we go. Okay, this is going to be a focus stack. I'm going to focus stack this plant so I can get everything in focus, starting from the tip of the leaf here all the way to the tip of the plant. So it'll be a focus stack, probably I'd say 10, maybe 15 images, which should get it all in focus, hopefully. So we'll give it a go. Righto, here we go. Okay, so we'll see how that turns out. It's still processing, but it should work out okay. I will take another one without focus stacking just to make sure that either one I've got to pick when I put it in the computer, and we'll see how we go there. It's looking okay as I'm going through the frames. Yeah, all the way through. So we'll see how we go, but I will take one more shot just to make sure that I've got everything where I want it. Or what you can do Alright, we'll just increase that. See how we go with this one. That's not too bad, so we'll put that up on the screen so you can take a look. Okay, a little bit about the gear that you can use for macro photography. It doesn't have to be the most expensive equipment money can buy. Basically, let's start with the camera. Any camera that you have, whether it's full frame, crop sensor, micro 4/3, it doesn't really matter about the camera. It's more about the lens and the light and the flash, or the speed light that you use, because with macro photography it's minute with the focusing, and you're always in sort of like a dark sort of area, so you need to have some sort of light. Yes, you can use natural light, but it's better to use a speed light like I have here, just to light that scene up, because sometimes you'll have to close your aperture right down, and you know, to f16, f18, f22, not the ideal thing to do, but if you do so, you need to light up that scene, and this is where the speed light or flash comes into it. Now, basically, the equipment that I use a crop sensor body, and the reason for that is because with Canon you get a 1.6 crop factor, so I'm using a 90mm macro lens, a 1:1 magnification. So at that 90, it comes out around about 160 millimeters or 150 millimeters. So I don't have to be so close to the subject, especially when you're photographing bugs and insects, which will a bit jittery, a bit scary. So I can come back a bit with that. And that's why crop sensor bodies are really good for macro photography. Now, a lot of people say, yes, but what about low light capabilities? Well, with low light capabilities with this type of photography, I'm using a speed light, a flash. So it overcomes that bit of a problem that people might think you might have when you're using a crop sensor body. Now, as I said, you can use full frame and micro 4/3. Micro 4/3 are even better, once again, because of that crop factor of that little sensor. But you don't need all this high-end gear. I think there's probably 3 components to macro photography equipment. One is the speed light, the next one is the diffuser, and the way you compose the image, because with macro photography the depth of field is virtually nothing, so you've got to be really on guard with how you focus it. Some people like to have part of the image out of focus, some people like it fully in focus, some people like the focus stack, some people don't. I've done a little bit of focus stacking here today. You know, it all depends. It's really an individual thing, macro photography, and it's an art. It really is an art. Now, the next major component for your macro photography really is the lens. Now, you got the speed light, the lens, and the diffuser. They're the 3 things really that are important, and that's where you'll spend a little bit of money, not much. Now, most people think, oh, I've got a macro lens, but no, you probably haven't, because camera manufacturers have this tendency to put the word macro on their lens when it's not a macro lens. A macro lens is 1:1 magnification, 1.1. You'll see it on your lens if you've got a macro lens, which probably you haven't. But I suggest if you're going to get into macro photography, put your money into the glass, into the macro lens like I have here. It's a 90mm, 2.8, and that's a proper macro lens. The next thing is your speed light or flash. Now, this is where it becomes a little bit not difficult, but a little bit hard to get your head around. You're looking at a speed light that can keep up with the burst rate with your camera and the flash, right? So this camera takes 10 frames per second, which in this day and age really isn't fast, but it's fast enough for me to do what I want to do. So this speed light can keep up with that. This speed light I'm using, the Godox 864, is just incredible. It's a beast of a speed light. Runs on NiCad batteries, and it just bang, 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 bang. It just keeps going all day. It's incredible. But you don't have to have that. You don't have to buy that. You can buy just your normal flash. If you've already got a flash, you can use that and see how you go. You don't really want to have your flash on full power because the recycle time will come down on you. With this particular speed light, I can fire it 1:1 and it'll just keep firing straight away. But I've paid a lot of money for this flash, this speed light. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. For me, I do 90% of my photography is landscape photography, and the other 10% is divided up between this macro photography and wildlife photography. So you don't need to have that high-end gear, right? You don't need that. You can get away with what you've got. The next thing is the diffuser. Now, I've seen people make their own diffusers out of tins and all weird and wonderful things, pieces of cardboard, shoe boxes, cylinders from plastic wraps, or you can buy a manufactured one like the one I've got here. And the diffuser, I believe, is pretty important because you've got to diffuse the light. Now, you can get away with using natural light with no speed light or flash, but you're going to struggle if the light isn't right because the light's changing all the time. And a diffuser just helps it greatly. Now, the diffuser, and I brought all this gear, no one gives me anything, I don't want anything from anyone. The diffuser I got is the AK diffuser, right? It just a brilliant diffuser. I can get right in close. It's it's got a light on it, so you can light it up. This comes from the United States, but I like using it, and that's what I wanted to buy. But you don't have to have this. If you're just starting out with macro photography, I suggest you don't buy any of this gear. Practice with what you've got, okay? Practice with what you got. And if you start to get really interested in your macro photography, then upgrade everything. It's like what I say about cameras, right? So if you're only new to this macro game, don't go out and do all this stuff. Use what you've got. Now, the thing with macro photography is you really, it's quite an amazing thing to do because I'm just walking around here and it's very cold here today. So there's no bugs out. They're just not here. There's a lot of spider webs, and I'm just trying to photograph what I can find. I found a couple of things, like just over there, there's a what do you call it, a dragonfly, a double-winged dragonfly, which he must be asleep because he hasn't moved while I've been speaking to him, and I will take a photo of him and I will show you. But other than that, it's, look, macro photography is just great. You're just walking around and, you're enjoying it. Another thing, people are probably wondering what this thing is here. This is called a cotton carrier, and I use this for wildlife photography, and it's got this clip here, okay? On the bottom of my camera, there's a little washer thing, and this is a brilliant thing to use. Seriously, I took this away overseas last year. It's made in the United States, and I just find it so good, especially with this gear. It just clips in like so, and turn it around like that, and then you've got hands free, and I can walk around, and I can walk around like this. So, but once again, you don't need anything like that either. I mean, I don't like neck straps, especially in summer. I've never used them, I just don't like them. This suits me, but getting back to the basics of this, if you're just starting out and you want to get into your macro photography, you don't need all this expensive gear. You just don't. Just practice with what you've got. And then if you think, I really like this and I'm really starting to like my macro photography, then start to spend a bit of money. The first thing I suggest you buy is your lens, your macro lens, then maybe a speed light or a flash, as we call them, speed lights, and buy a good one, and then the diffuser. I think they're the three things: the lens, which has got to be macro 1:1, the diffuser, which can be any type, and I use various diffusers. I'll show you a couple of photos of the diffusers I use. You've got then the speed light. So the speed light, the diffuser, and the lens, they're the three key parts of macro photography. Okay, so keep that in mind. It can be quite challenging, but you have to take your time, but it's all in the focusing. And if you're just starting out, don't worry about focus stacking and all this, because that is that's advancement. That is, you know, that's just pretty difficult. But once you get it, it's okay. Handheld focus stacking is pretty darn tricky. Now, I never use a tripod for macro photography unless I'm photographing things like mushrooms, where I can have a slider or a macro rail where I slowly move the focus points, right? But that's for another video at another time. But if you're just starting out, start with the gear you've got and just practice, right? Even if you've got a kit lens, just practice. Now, before I finish up this one here on this subject, there's other things you can use. You can use extension tubes, which you get a 50mm lens and you get say an extension tube you can buy them in packs of 3 and they're only about $40. These darn things work really well. I mean, a 50mm lens, get 3 extension tubes. You're looking at a 24mm extension tube. You put that on the front of your camera, then put your 50mm lens on and you've got a macro lens close to 1:1. I've actually used them and they're not too bad, seriously. You get a bit of vignetting, but you can get that out in editing if you edit. So you've got that. You've got another method where they're a 50mm lens again, where you turn the lens around backwards, and you're actually photographing through the lens, right? Not through the element. So you turn the 50mm lens backwards. That's a bit tricky. Don't really suggest it, but it does work in an emergency. But the extension tubes work really well. Now, if you do progress with your macro photography, there's a thing called a Raynox 250, which I do have in this bag, and that is like a clip-on. It clips onto the front of your lens, and that'll give you almost 2:1 magnification. Okay, so, but keep that in mind for later on if you're going to continue with your macro photography. So, this dragonfly over here, I'm going to photograph him now, and I'll put him up on the screen because I think he's just starting to wake up and he's starting to move his wings. You got to love nature, don't you? And I'll take a photo of him and I'll put it up on the screen. Okay, we're coming to the end of this video now, and I just stumbled upon these flowers here, and they've got these nice little red or little purple mauvey coloured flowers, and this is where macro really comes into it, because they're very, very small, but they're very, very colourful. So I'll take a couple of shots and I'll put them on the screen. But basically, I love macro photography. It's you just walk around and you're seeing things. It's a visual experience, macro photography, and it's completely different to landscape photography or basically wildlife photography. It's really intricate details that you're looking at. Because a lot of people seem to think that macro photography is all about bugs and insects, which is correct, but there's other things that you can photograph in the micro form, like the texture on branches and on bark. You've got the textures in the flowers. They're just absolutely mind-blowing what you can find, and it's just a matter of just walking around. I've had a real fun time here this morning with this. I mean, I don't do much of it, but when I do, I try and do my best. I'm not the best at macro photography, but I do know how to do it. And it's just, I think it's a genre of photography where you have to really keep going at it, because your focusing is just so critical. It's manual focus, and you've only got to move a couple of millimeters and you're out of focus either that way or this way. It's a challenge. It is really a challenge. But if you want to challenge yourself and you want to really extend your creativity, and that's a big word for macro photography, creativity, well then give macro photography a go. And as I said earlier in this video, you don't need all that specialised gear. I've got this because it suits me, and I've been doing photography for a long time, so I can afford this gear and I can use it. I know how to use it. But if you're just starting out, you don't need all this stuff. You don't need it. Just start with what you got. I mean, look at those extension tubes, and I'll put a link and a couple of photos of the extension tubes up in this video if I can. It's a bit of a long video, I do apologise, but stay with it because this is just absolutely phenomenal what I found here. In the next, say, spring, this is when all this place becomes alive with flowers and insects and bugs and butterflies. I took a really nice shot though, a bit earlier on, of a moth. I thought it was a butterfly, but it's an actual moth, and I put that on the screen. It turned out brilliantly. I had to focus stack it. I think it was about 25 images. I had to go bang, 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 bang to get all that, because he was standing upright. He hadn't had his wings out. He was standing upright, and that's a really nice photograph. So I think if you can think about what you're doing and look around at what you're actually seeing in front of you, you have to really look, and it's an observation. It's an observation of nature. So I'll wrap it up here. Tell me what you think. Put your comments down below. I'll always get back to you. You know I always get back to you. If you're new to this channel, please hit that subscribe button and the bell next door so you don't miss anything. And yeah, look, thank you for being with me here today. It's coffee time. As you know, people who know me, I love my coffee. And I think I'll take a couple more shots, see how I go. I'll put them on the screen, but please let me know what you think. And please let me know if you're thinking about doing or getting into macro photography, because I've got to say to you, it is absolutely fantastic to do. And you just take your time and experience nature close up. So that's it for Sniper Photography here today. And as I always say, be nice to yourself, family and friends, but most of all, you keep shooting, keep smiling. Bye for now.